Good morning. Today we're going to be moving on and talking about a new group of animals. And pretty soon we're going to begin adding to our chart that you guys actually have at home. And we'll compare and contrast some of these animals. It'll be a great review, making sure that you really understand all of the characteristics like a taxonomist would for how we classify these different animals into these different vertebrate groups. So in previous lessons, you learned more about a specific group of animal called the amphibians. And what's unique about an amphibian? Do you remember? They live in two different worlds during their lifetime. They begin as tadpoles with gills living and breathing in water, but they slowly develop lungs and live on land, breathing air through their lungs and skin. Most amphibians reproduce by laying eggs in water, and they have slimy skin that help them breathe. Listen today for some characteristics that taxonomists use to classify salamanders and lizards differently. Salamanders are amphibians, and lizards are what we're going to be learning about today. They are reptiles. That's right. All right, so here we are. Look at our picture. Hello, boys and girls. As you can see, Anna Anaconda is our starting place for today's lesson. She is a green anaconda, one of the largest snakes in the world. When she unwinds, she is about as long as 6 of you stretched out head to toe across the room. And she weighs about 500 pounds. That's more than 8 of you put together. Yikes, that's a big snake. Anna Anaconda belongs to a group of animals that share a lot of the same characteristics as the amphibians you learned about last time. Who knows the name of the group used by taxonomists to classify snakes? Yes, snakes are reptiles. Reptiles include crocodiles, alligators, lizards, turtles, and tortoises. But right now I want to focus on one reptile only, Anna. It's no secret that she has a very high opinion of herself. She was quite fond of telling me so when I visited Peru. She thinks she is rather pretty. And you know what? I quite agree. In spite of her heavy body, Anna is a very good swimmer. Unlike some of her reptilian relatives, she's an aquatic snake, preferring swamps and rivers to land. Snakes often have a bad reputation. Some snakes are poisonous, releasing poisonous liquid called venom when they bite. Anna's teeth are actually quite small, and she is not venomous, so you need not worry about that. However, some people fear anacondas because they are members of a family of snakes called constrictors. And you know what that means, right? Yes, a constrictor catches and kills their prey by coiling or wrapping around the prey to squeeze them very tightly. Anacondas' jaws open so wide that they can swallow animals whole. Fish, caiman, even jaguars and small deer. The anaconda's powerful muscles crush the bones of its prey as it constricts, and once swallowed, then the anaconda slowly digests its meal. Uh-oh, some of you look fearful, but don't worry, you're safe. Anacondas don't live where you live in North America. You'll find them far, far away on the continent of South America. That's where I met Anna. Anna was sure to tell me that, as far as she knows, there are no documented record of any anacondas ever killing a man, woman, or child. She and all anacondas are nocturnal animals, and they hunt at night, eating frogs, toads, birds, fish, and turtles. She doesn't have to hunt very often because one animal will satisfy her appetite for a very long time. Well, that's a lot of information about Anna's characteristics, the ways by which scientists classify her as belonging to the animal class called reptiles or reptilia. Anna and other reptiles share some common characteristics with amphibians. Many scientists believe that reptiles evolved from amphibians. Reptiles are all vertebrates because they all have That's right, backbones. And they are all cold-blooded because, that's right, their internal temperatures change with their surroundings. Most reptiles can adjust their body temperatures by basking in the sun to stay warm or by hiding under a rock to stay cool. Just like amphibians, reptiles live on land and in water. However, these two groups do, of course, have their differences. Amphibians depend upon water to stay alive, much more so than reptiles. Amphibians' thin, wet, slimy skin needs moisture to absorb oxygen from the air, but reptiles' skin is waterproof. Unlike toads and salamanders, Anna and other reptiles do not breathe through their skin, which is hard, dry, and scaly. They use only their lungs to breathe air, which means they are able to withstand very harsh dry weather conditions under which amphibians would not be able to survive. Of course, because they have lungs, this also means that reptiles cannot stay underwater very long without coming to the surface to breathe. Amphibians usually spend part of their lives entirely in water, but this is not true of reptiles as a group. Whereas amphibians begin life with gills, reptiles are born with lungs and are never dependent upon gills for breathing. I love this sentence because it gives you a really good specific transition word at the beginning of this sentence that lets you know this is a sentence that is contrasting or telling two things that are different about these two groups. So the word whereas is a transition word. It's going to tell you that amphibians begin life with gills. Okay, so that's one thing. But reptiles, on the other hand, are born with lungs and never dependent upon gills for breathing. Remember how different baby tadpoles look from adult toads? That's not the case for reptiles. Baby reptiles usually look a lot like their parents. They do not undergo metamorphosis the same way that amphibians do. So that paragraph gave us a lot of things that we could put on a Venn diagram to show the differences between reptiles and amphibians. Let's take a look at some of the animals that belong to the animal group classified as reptiles. These include lizards, geckos, iguanas, and chameleons. Unlike snakes, most lizards have 4 legs. Chameleons have a keen sense of sight and very long tongues. Their brilliant colors, all shades of pink, blue, red, orange, turquoise, and green, help them camouflage when they come face to face with their enemies. Earth's largest living lizard is the Komodo dragon. It can grow to be 10 feet long and may weigh as much as 150 pounds. These giant island carnivores eat animals as large as goats, pigs, and deer. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest reptiles on Earth, some weighing up to 1 ton. Do you know what 1 ton is? If you don't know what 1 ton is, then you don't know how big that is. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. The weight of an average mid-sized car is about 2 tons, so it weighs half as much as a car weighs. That's still a lot. Looking like very large lizards, crocodiles make their homes in tropical climates and are often seen floating like logs in the water with only their nostrils, eyes, and ears showing. Like Anna, they are nocturnal hunters, hunting at night. Crocodiles have the most powerful bite in the entire animal kingdom and are fierce hunters living off fish and small mammals. Some live to be more than 100 years old. Alligators resemble crocodiles, but they are usually less aggressive or boldly forceful, and they live in freshwater habitats. Can you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? Alligators usually have a wide, rounded, U-shaped snout, and crocodiles tend to have longer, more pointed, V-shaped noses. So looking at these two pictures, can you tell which one is an alligator and which one is a crocodile? Alligators have a U-shaped snout. A snout is like another name for a nose. And alligators have a pointier or more V-shaped. Crocodiles have a V-shaped nose. Alligators are more U-shaped. And they live in different continents as well. Cool. Pretty. Look at all of these. Wait a minute. Yeah, look at all these reptiles side by side. Chameleons, Komodo dragons, crocodiles, and alligators. What do you notice about their skins? Remember I mentioned that reptile skin is waterproof? Reptile skin is waterproof, and that it's hard and thick and scaly. Their type of scaly skin protects them from overheating, and because their skin is waterproof, it keeps water inside their bodies. Because reptile skin is very sensitive to or easily affected by temperature, it becomes hot or cold very quickly when exposed to sun or shade. Like many amphibians, some reptiles shed their skin. Many lizards and snakes shed their skin several times a year as they grow. Snakes do not eat their shed skin the way amphibians do. Raise your hand if you've ever found a snake's skin anywhere. It's pretty milky white or maybe milky yellow color, and it's fragile, but you can tell it's a snake skin if you get a whole one. It's very interesting looking, and it's soft. Look at all those different scaly, hard skins. But here are turtles and tortoises. Turtles and tortoises are the only reptiles with bony shells as part of their skeletons. Their backbones are actually fused to the shells. That means their backbones really are part of their shells. These shells may be flat or domed. Turtles have softer shells so that they can swim faster, but land-dwelling tortoises need hard, leathery shells to protect them from predators. Their legs vary in appearance depending upon where they live as well. Sea turtles have oar-shaped flippers for moving through water effectively. Many turtles have claws which help them dig, and pond turtles also have webs between their claws to effectively maneuver or move through water. Land tortoises, like this giant Galapagos, have huge column-shaped legs with claws. These claws help them dig into the ground to move across it. Some turtle species live for a century. Do you know how long a century is? 100 years. So a century is 100 years. A ton is 2,000 pounds. Good things to remember. That's a long time. It's more than what most people live. Body coverings are an important difference between amphibians and reptiles. Another thing that sets the two groups apart is their eggs. Remember the slide that showed strands of thousands of soft eggs that Tabitha Toad laid in a pond? Most reptiles lay far fewer eggs, and they lay their eggs in nests on land. Membranes, which are soft outer coverings that provide protection and also help to hold in necessary water for eggs to grow, usually coat the inside of reptilian eggs. In most reptile species, the eggs are also covered in leathery, calcified shells. A few snakes and lizards give birth to fully formed live young instead of laying eggs. The garter snake, a snake that is right here in North America, is one of these exceptions to the rule. So is the Solomon Island skink, a lizard whose habitat is near the continent of Australia. Like amphibians, reptiles live all over the world. They prefer hot, low areas like rainforests, prairies, deserts, and oceans, but they can be found everywhere except near the cold South Pole. If you are fascinated with reptiles, and amphibians, you may want to think about becoming a herpetologist. Yes, indeed, herpetologist is the name given to a scientist who specializes in herpetology, the study of certain crawling animals, specifically reptiles and amphibians. With more than 5,600 species of lizards alone, that should keep you busy for a lifetime. You have seen and learned a lot about fish, amphibians, and reptiles, but there are still two major groups of vertebrates that you will learn more about when we come back and have additional lessons. So let's think about some of the questions and some of the reading that we just had on reptiles. What are the characteristics of a lizard that classify it as a reptile? Well, the young are born looking just like their parents, only smaller. They have hard, thick, scaly skin. They lay eggs in a nest on land. Reptiles breathe through lungs. How is this different from a salamander, which is an amphibian? Well, salamanders are born as tadpoles. They are amphibians that first breathe through gills and then later through lungs and skin. And most have moist, slimy skin, and they lay their eggs in water. What kind of reptile is Anna? She's an anaconda. And is she venomous? No, she is not venomous. She is a constrictor. Why is it important that reptiles have hard, scaly skin? How does that help a reptile? Well, hard, scaly skin helps a reptile keep water in its body. It keeps it from overheating and it protects them. You also learned that reptile skin is sensitive. Explain what sensitive means and why it's especially important for cold-blooded animals to have scaly, sensitive skin. Sensitive means being able to feel something quickly and intensely. And it's important because reptiles, which are cold-blooded, depend on their skin for regulating their body temperature. They need to know that their temperature is changing quickly. If it's too hot, they need to get in the shade or the water to cool off. If they're too cold, they need to get out into the sun to bask. Which two classes are the only ones in the entire group of known reptiles to have calcified, domed shells? Turtles and tortoises. Describe the part of a pond turtle's body that helps it move through water effectively. Webbing between its claws. Now, compare and contrast the body design of a pond turtle to that of a fish. Compare means to tell how something is the same, and contrast means to tell how something is different. A pond turtle and a fish. Well, if you compare them, both are, okay, so that word both tells you that you're telling how they are the same, how they compare. Both are cold-blooded vertebrates. They both have scales. They swim in water. A pond turtle, however, okay, that means you've made a transition. You're now talking about how something is different. Okay, you're going one direction in your sentence and in your thoughts when you talk about both. And when you say however, you have to change direction in your thoughts and think about how something is different. A pond turtle, however, has webbed claws that help it swim, whereas a fish has fins and a tail for effective swimming. Also, a pond turtle has lungs and breathes air, whereas a fish has gills and breathes through the water. Finally, a pond turtle has a domed shell and fish do not. You heard that reptiles lay eggs in nests on land. Why is a membrane in an egg important for a reptile that lays eggs on land? Well, it provides protection and it holds in water. Remember, amphibians laid their eggs directly in the water, but if that pond dries up, those eggs will die because they have no way to keep the moisture in. Compare and contrast a crocodile and an alligator. Compare is to tell how they are the same, and contrast is to tell how they are different. So both are reptiles. That's a comparison. Both have hard, scaly skin. That's a comparison. Alligators prefer fresh water. That's a contrast. Crocodiles prefer salt water. That's how they are different. Contrast. Alligators have wide, rounded, U-shaped snout. That's difference. That's a contrast. Crocodiles have a longer, more pointed V-shaped snout. Okay. Crocodiles also have the most powerful bite of all the animals in the animal kingdom. What major characteristic represents all the animals in the group called reptiles? All reptiles have vertebrates. They are all vertebrates. They all have a backbone. They are all cold-blooded. They are all covered in scales or bony plates. They usually lay eggs. There are only a couple pattern breakers that don't. And they have lungs. Those are the major characteristics that represent the animals in the reptile group. See you next time.